Good afternoon, Mike Jones, Fire Chief, City of Fredericksburg, here to provide you a COVID-19 update, and then we'll try to delve into the intricacies of what is Phase 2 of the governor's reopening plan. So let's start off with the statistics first. For the local health district, we're now up to 1,702 cases total. That's since the beginning of the pandemic to now. It's cumulative. Some of those people naturally have recovered since then. We have a total of 750 cases altogether in Stafford, 615 in Spotsylvania, 72 in King George, and 79 in Caroline. The city is now up to 186 cases. We were trending in the right direction. We were down in the low teens and even the single digits for the last couple of days related to new cases. Unfortunately, in the last reporting period, we went up to 41. Hopefully that's an anomaly and we'll get it back down in the right direction. Only 19 deaths in the health district. I say only 19, but that is a positive compared to some other areas in the state of Virginia. We did have one originally attributed to a citizen in the city of Fredericksburg, but that was a mistake by the Virginia Department of Health, so we're still at 0 deaths for city residents, which is a good thing. On the testing phase of it, testing is increasing both at the state level and the health district level, and the good news on both steads is that the 7-day positive trend is downward. The state now is about down to almost 10%, just a little bit above 10% on the positive tests versus the number of people tested, and they're testing somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 a day. And the health district is testing pretty consistently now over 400 people a day, and our positivity rate is down to a little bit above 11, about 11.5%. It was up about 17% week and a half ago, so we're heading in the right direction. 30 people still in the hospitals in the local health district that are positive COVID patients. There are some more under investigation, but we're holding steady there, and the number of hospital beds and new hospitalizations is down. Hospital beds are in good shape, but not only in the health district, but statewide. We've never used a surge bed in the state, so those are all positive signs that we're moving forward through this pandemic and maybe getting ready to head out the other side. The statistics for the Commonwealth of Virginia and the United States will be provided in our written report that we submit a little bit later on today, so check those out. Well, let's talk a little bit about Phase 2 of the reopening plan called Forward Virginia by Governor Northam. We're going to try, I can't go through the whole document, it's 41 pages right here, but what we will do is we'll put a link on our written report so that if you want to download it or print it out and take a look at it and go through each particular portion, you can. I'll try to hit the highlights of the differences between Phase 2 and Phase 1, which we were in. We actually started Phase 2 as of midnight a little while ago here on Friday, so we are actually in Phase 2 in the Rappahannock region. Northern Virginia and the city of Richmond are still in Phase 1, but everybody else has moved to Phase 2. So let's talk a little bit about that. The biggest difference in Phase 2 is as a lot of the indoor facilities are allowed to open at 50% capacity of their occupancy load. So that's the really big key there. Now, not all of them can do 50%, and we'll get into some particulars here in a minute, but that's the big thing. Let's talk a little bit about our favorite subject, the food. So we'll talk about restaurants, food courts, breweries, distilleries, wineries, and tasting rooms can now have indoor seating customers at no more than 50% of the occupancy load while maintaining the 6 feet of social distancing. And you're going to have to see here when we talk a little bit later, the social distancing for depending on the particular business changes from 6 feet to 10 feet. So you need to pay attention to that. But the tables have to be 6 feet apart. Social distancing of parties is 6 feet apart. Outdoor seating is still allowed per the guidelines like it was in Phase 1, so that's good. And the parties can now be increased from 10 up to 50. So if you have a party of up to 50, you can have that now. Again, we just got to be separated out from the other people by 6 feet and everything like that. Bars and congregating areas of restaurants are still closed, as well as the game rooms, dance floors, and playgrounds. All the other restrictions from Phase 1 apply that haven't particularly mentioned here in Phase 2. And again, I ask you to get a copy of it on the link that we provide, or you can go to the governor's website and pick it up there. Non-essential brick and mortar can open up with up 50% capacity while maintaining social distancing. The dressing and changing rooms are still closed. The big thing here is for all of us that have a little bit of COVID weight on. Yeah, I got it too. Gyms, recreation centers, sports facilities, and exercise facilities can now open to customers using indoor areas with the following restrictions. Be careful and listen to this. No more than 30% of the occupancy load while maintaining 10 feet of social distancing between individuals. So again, a little bit of difference there, not 50%, but 30%. Fitness equipment should be arranged to maintain 10 feet of separation between patrons, members, and guests using the equipment. So you're going to have a little bit less space. You're not going to be jammed up on top of one another, whether it's a treadmill or a gym set or an elliptical or whatever it might be. Patrons will be screened for COVID-19 symptoms prior to admission. Instructors and participants in group exercise and fitness classes must maintain 10 feet of physical distancing between each other at all times. So you can go back and have those group exercise and fitness classes. You're just going to have a big space depending on the number of people you're going to put there to do that. The total number of attendees, including both participants and instructors, so that's everybody, in all group exercise and fitness classes cannot exceed 30% of the occupancy load of the space, whether that's a separate room or whatever it is that has an occupancy load, or 50 persons, whichever is less. So if the 30% is less, that applies. If the 50 people is less, that applies. And you'll see that as we get through a little bit later on. Here's an interesting one. Personal trainers must maintain at least 10 feet of distance between themselves and their clients. Equipment that cannot be cleaned thoroughly or disinfected between uses is prohibited. Things like climbing ropes or exercise bands, things like that. And then hot tubs, saunas, splash pads, spray pools, and things like that are still closed. Indoor and outdoor recreational sports, I know that's a big topic as well, can proceed as long as you have 10 feet of physical distancing can be maintained by all instructors, participants, and spectators other than incidental contact and members of the same household. Competition that involves close contact with other athletes must be avoided. The total number of attendees at outdoor recreational sports cannot exceed 50% of the occupancy load or 50 persons, whichever is less. When you go to indoor recreational sports, the number of attendees cannot exceed 30%. So it drops on the indoor side of it to 30% of the occupancy load or 50 people, whichever is less. For indoor sports, spectators may not be present except for parents, guardians, or caretakers who are supervising children. So again, you're not going to be allowed to have any competitions or anything like that in there where you could maintain social distancing with just a lot of your friends and everything. If it isn't parents, guardians, or caretakers, they're not going to be allowed to look at it. Our beauty shops, salons, and barber shops, spas, massage centers, tanning salons, tattoo shops, and other personal grooming or care facilities. The big change here, most of phase one applies, but the big change here is you're now allowed to increase up to 2 appointments per service provider at a time. Remember in phase one, it was only one appointment. Now you can do 2 appointments at the same time. The waiting rooms can be open, but you have to have 6 feet of social distancing there, and the appointments still need to be staggered to minimize congregating in the waiting rooms and to allow that proper time of disinfection after each customer. All right. The face coverings for both clients and the employees still applies, and keeping a list of clients with names and contact numbers and the time you provided and date you provided the service is still required. That hasn't changed since phase one. Unfortunately, indoor theaters, performing arts centers, concert venues, sports venues, bowling alleys, skating rinks, arcades, and amusement parks must remain closed. So a lot of those things can't open up. Outdoor establishments of those just mentioned above can open with some restrictions. Big thing, they've got to develop a flow plan of how they're going to move people through the buildings or through the exhibits and things like that. They've got to exercise 6 feet of social distancing. They've got to reconfigure their seating areas if they have those to allow for social distancing. And they've got to make sure that they prevent any type of bottleneck or areas of large gatherings that can put together. If they're taking tickets or things like that, then they have to have the proper sneeze guards in place between the people getting the tickets and the people selling the tickets and everything like that. A lot of information wanting to know, and we've had a lot of questions. We'll try to go over this about our Parks and Rec. Got a lot of questions there. So I got together with Jane Shellhorse, who's the Director of Parks and Rec, and we worked together along with the Health and Safety Manager, and we've come up with some ideas to be able to use that. The tennis courts will be reopened. Good news for everybody. Tennis courts are going to be reopened. There is going to be signage out there. It reminds all users that no one with a fever or symptoms of COVID-19 or a known exposure to a COVID-19 case in the prior 14 days should be using the facility. Patrons should maintain 10 feet of physical distancing while utilizing the tennis courts, and no gatherings of 50 people or more are permitted, and then it talks about CDC and governor's guidelines. So we're going to have that posted at most of our areas. We're going to post that at the playgrounds and a lot of other places. The pickleball courts will reopen with the same signage above, and for a lot of people, the basketball courts will reopen with the same signage above, so that's good news. The hockey rink is going to reopen. Again, very much similar to that with the same type signage there, about the 50 people and the 10 feet of physical distancing here to do that and things like that. The sports fields may be rented only if an organizer provides for a plan for social distancing with gathering of no more than 50 people. That's going to be up to Parks and Rec where they're going to do that. The playgrounds, unfortunately, will remain closed, and a lot of that is just because kids don't really know how to social distance real well, and it is a gathering spot for not only children but adults and everything like that. So for right now, our playgrounds will remain closed. And right now, even though we know people will probably want to gather around them, the park rentals for the shelters and everything like that will remain closed. But we're doing our best to try to get most of our facilities open back up. We know people want to get out. The weather's good. We're rolling into summertime now, and they want to get out, and they want to exercise, and they want to have fun outside. The sunshine's good for you. The fresh air is good for you, so we're trying our best to get those things opened up. If at any time you have questions about what's going on, you need guidance interpreting the governor's recommendations or anything like that, don't hesitate to give us a call, 540-372-1010. It's the city manager's line. We can get us there, or you can work with building services at 540-372-1080, or you can call the fire marshal, works underneath me, the fire chief, at 540-372-1059. We'll talk again next week. Have a great weekend.